She's not what you'd expect. She's tough and feisty, but gentle and tender. She makes millions and gives millions to the poor. She cries, she laughs, she teaches, she comforts. This is the Dani Johnson Show.
Welcome to the Dani Johnson Show. We're so blessed that you decided to join us today. And if you decide to join us tomorrow, you'll be blessed and so will we too. That probably wasn't proper grammar, but this is Dani Johnson, and our show is about helping you improve every area of your life every day. Why not? You don't want to be one of those rut suckers, do ya? So many people, man, they just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and complaining that their life isn't getting better. But here, every day, we focus on one topic that we drive deep until we end, and therefore you're able to grab strategies. In fact, our last show yesterday, a woman had said, she goes, I've been listening the whole time and I've been taking notes. Thank you so much, Dani. I know this is exactly what I needed to hear today. So it's not one of them shows that you're hoping to just be entertained by, but hoping that this one will change you. How? Well, today we're going to be taking your call. We're going to be talking about inflation. What is truly the cost of inflation? How is it affecting our lives? Do you even know it exists? I know you've heard about it being talked about maybe in the news, but how do you prepare for it? What does it really look like? How is it affecting our children? And what should we do about it? Is there anything that we can do about it? And so I want to make sure, in fact, all of us here at DaniJohnson.com, we want to make sure that you're set up for success. We want to make sure that your family is, that you're not caught off guard, because boy, you and I have had some things in our lives that caught us off guard, right? We have. We absolutely have. You know, I'll never forget March 17th of 2000, I got caught off guard. I had been diagnosed that day early in the morning with a fatal heart condition. And you know, I was young, 30 years old, and the last thing in the world I thought I would hear from a doctor after I had this radioactive drug put inside my body, and they did this whole CAT scan and all this stuff, and the cardiologist then said that I'd been diagnosed with reverse entrance supraventricular tachycardia, which basically means that my heart races out of nowhere. So it'd be a resting heart rate going up to 300 beats per minute, just out of nowhere, rocking up the stairs to take my baby to put him down for bed kind of a thing. And I'd pass out 3-4 times a day. Well, that morning, March 17th of 2000, the doctor said I could drop dead and no one would be able to save my life. There'd be no ambulance that could get to me fast enough to save my life. That was the side effects of this fatal heart condition, and that I couldn't work anymore, that I needed to reduce my stress. I had a house full of kids and a gigantic home that I was attempting to take care of because of my stupidity with money and trying to prove to myself and anybody else that somehow I had made it, and really I hadn't. We had almost $1 million worth of debt. We had $100,000 in car and credit card debt. So foolish, so stupid. But see, some things catch us off guard. That caught me off guard. He said I couldn't work, and I was only working 20 hours a week. He said I couldn't fly anymore, and my job, well, it required that I flew. Nonetheless, that was a giant life change that just literally popped out of nowhere. And inflation is one of those things that's happening in the background of our lives, and we don't really know that it's happening, but we can kind of feel it, but we can't quite put our finger on it. That somehow the groceries are a little more expensive than they used to be, or in some cases, a lot more expensive. Our utility bills are a lot more expensive. In some cases, our rent or the cost of housing, gasoline. These are all places where we see inflation, and it just sneaks up on us and hits us when we least expect it. And it causes some other, let's say, goals or dreams or a vision maybe that you have to be held back. And so today, I want us to look at options of how we can plan for the better future, how we can protect ourselves from that inflation by changing some habits that we might have today, changing some mindsets that we might have today that will cause us to get blindsided. You see, the day I was blindsided with the fatal heart condition and our income being cut, not in half, but far more than in half, we were going to no longer make close to $1 million a year with me not working. Taking me out of the picture completely changed our financial equation. And our stupidity had us spending all that we made. So we were blindsided. And so let's talk about that, inflation. I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you and I were kids, a candy bar was a quarter. It was 25 cents. What does that same candy bar cost today? 99 cents, $1. That is inflation. The same exact Butterfinger. Oh, why did I say Butterfinger? Those are so good. It's definitely on the top of my list of favorite candy bars. Oh gosh, don't you love they get stuck in your teeth, right? You got to pick that part out, and that's that really condensed part. Oh, it's so good. I've made homemade Butterfingers before, by the way. They're pretty darn good and organic. I've made organic homemade Butterfingers. So yummy. But Butterfingers. You know, when I took my lunch money on the way to school in Cerritos, California, on my bike, I would stop at the AM/PM mini market and spend that $1 on candy bars and Cheetos and some kind of a soda. That's what $1 would buy back then. But right now, the same bag of Cheetos is $1. The same 25-cent candy bar is $1. And the soda, I don't even know because I don't drink it anymore. But once in a while, I buy a candy bar and those chips. I know it's bad, but every once in a while I do it. So anyway, twice a year is what I mean. So that's what inflation is. It's the same. We're paying 4 times the price for the same volume of product, the same ounces that are on the bag, right? The same ounces in the candy bar. It's not that we are paying 4 times the price and we got a much bigger candy bar. No, we are paying the same price for, the same size product that we paid, this is like 30 some odd years ago, more than 30 years ago. How sad. So that's what inflation is. Now, what we can also look at is, has our income increased by the same measure? The answer is no. Our incomes have not increased with the same measure that inflation has increased. Housing has increased. Gas has increased. Everything around us has increased. I can't think of anything that we could say we're paying the same price for that we did 20 years ago. It's not the case. Clothing is more expensive. Cars, oh my goodness, are more expensive. Everything insurance is more expensive. It's more expensive today to run a business than it was 25 or 30 years ago. Do you understand what I'm saying? Everything straight across the board has gotten more expensive. However, our incomes, the job market hasn't increased the pay as it has increased with inflation. Now here's the question. Whose job is it to do that? Is it the government's job? Well, first of all, the government is the one who is causing the inflation. They're very, very bad business and finance decisions is what is causing you and me and our future children and our grandchildren to pay far more for an item that is not giving us more for the $1 that we're putting in. And here's part of the problem. Why is there inflation? Well, number one, the $1 in 1913 was backed by gold. It was backed by the gold standard. Today, the same $1 with George Washington on it, that same $1 is worth 2 pennies. That same $1 is only worth 2 pennies. So that's what's happened since 1913. We got off of the gold standard, and because we got off the gold standard, now our government is just printing money. We need more money, so they print more money. Could you imagine if you and I could do that? Wow. Novel idea, right? I can't pay my debts, So let me go into the garage and let me just print off some more cash. And I'll go ahead and pay my bills with this Monopoly money. To be quite honest with you, I wonder if Monopoly money actually has the same value that regular money does. Because if our dollar is worth 2 cents, why? Because there's so many of them out there floating that is not backed by something of value. It's just paper. So is the toilet paper that you use every day several times a day. Do you understand? Or the napkin that you use every day. So therefore, we are going to see even worse than what we're seeing right now. And I don't want to be the bearer of the bad news, but what I do want to do is I want you and I to look at the reality of what is ahead and begin to plan for it. You see, if I had any idea that on March 17th of 2000 that I would be diagnosed with a fatal heart condition, if I had any idea that was going to take place, if somebody had forewarned me 5 years before, 10 years before, do you think I would have made different financial decisions? Of course I would have. If somebody would have told, first of all, if somebody would have told me that, I'd probably, freak, really? Who do you think you are, a prophet or something, right? I probably would have responded that way, because every once in a while we have somebody look into our lives and tell us maybe what might be ahead. And if somebody would have told me, I probably would have, whatever. Don't be an idiot. I'm 30 years, you're saying at 30 years old I'm going to be diagnosed with a fatal heart condition, I won't be able to work? You know what you're talking about, idiot. That's what I would have said. But hindsight is always 20/20, right? So I really wished that I had been tipped off, because if I had, there's a good chance that out of the millions of dollars I had made in business, along with my husband, the millions that were made, we would have made totally different decisions. Hello, did you hear me? I mean, completely different financial decisions. We didn't never bought that $1 million home. We would have never gotten into a $1 million mortgage, ever. We would have never bought the new cars. We would have never used credit cards. We would have saved money for the kids' college tuition. We have a lot of them. We have a tribe, my friend, not just a family. We have a tribe of kids that will come out of my body, 5. Okay, 2 daughters, which meant 2 weddings, perhaps, that we would have had to pay for. Gotcha? God forbid if one of them wanted to become a doctor or a lawyer, right? If we had a kid that's what they wanted to do, and by the way, that's a good investment. That's a good investment. That's not a waste of college money. Being a dentist is a good investment into college, but going to business school to learn from someone who's never studied business is probably not the best use of the dollar. But I wished somebody would have told me or tipped me off. I would have made different decisions. What about you? This is Dani Johnson. We'll continue with more right after this.
The Dani Johnson Show, helping people just like you make life more enjoyable and rewarding. The Dani Johnson Show.
Hi, this is Dani Johnson. Let me ask you something. Do you dream about being more confident, more beautiful, more powerful? Are you that girl who never learned to wear makeup and now you're lost in a sea of YouTube videos? That busy mom who can't get enough sleep and just wants to feel pretty again? Or maybe you're that professional who wants a little more respect in the office. From the boardroom to the bedroom, celebrity makeup artist Xtina Harmsworth from XMH Beauty will help you. Xtina has a track record of making beauty easy on any budget. Her live class is simple, step-by-step professional beauty techniques, and insider secrets will set you apart from the crowd. So don't sit on your dream another minute. Learn from the best. Get your exclusive free gift from Xtina today at xmhbeauty.com/Dani. That's xmhbeauty.com/DANI.
Now, more of the Dani Johnson Show.
So there I was, I'm on the phone with the doctor, and the doctor is telling me that I can't work anymore, and he's telling me that I could drop dead of a heart attack, and that my children will grow up without a mother if I didn't stop working, and if I didn't reduce my stress, get a pacemaker, and take these 3 different drugs. This is Dani Johnson. We're talking about today that if we knew ahead of time that there was a disaster coming, what we would have done differently. You see, March 17th of 2000, that's when I got that phone call from that doctor. And my husband and I had lived like financial fools for a whole decade. We made so much money in business, millions of dollars we made. And we spent all of it. Did you hear me? We spent all of it. And there was that day of the doctor saying that I have to stop working. I was only working 20 hours a week, but I made a lot of money in my profession. That meant that my income was going to be cut by nearly $1 million a year. Now, you might say, so what? When you're living and spending all that you make, this is a problem. I really wish that somebody would have told me 10 years before that I might encounter a fatal heart condition 10 years later, and to save all that I made, to live well below my means, and plan for the future. Little did I know either that at 30 years old, I would have had 5 children. I had just given birth to my 5th child when I had encountered this terrible news. So listen, there is some financial corrections that are coming your way. And right now, you could make some really good decisions so that you bypass making the same mistakes that we have made. What is the financial correction that's coming? Look at our inflation. The loaf of bread that used to cost, 50 cents? Now costs what? You can pay almost $5 if you try to get real fancy with bread. Come on, I remember when we didn't have an entire aisle in a grocery store filled with bread options. But there literally is bread that goes from $2 up to $5 for a loaf of bread. And I don't know if you noticed, but it's the smaller loaf of bread that costs $5. What we used to spend 50 cents on for a fresh loaf of bread right down there at the bakery, we now are spending multiplied times more for the same loaf of bread. Not to mention the fact that we've gotten addicted to all the plenty of options that we have for bread. There's white. There's French, there's Italian, there's wheat. Do you understand? So not only has inflation played a part in grabbing our money directly out of our hands for the same size loaf of bread, but then we've taken it one step further and we've gotten addicted to these new options of all this different kind of bread, like Ezekiel bread that cost a fortune. Oh my gosh. Look at what we used to pay for a cup of coffee, 5 cents. That today we don't even think about throwing down $5. Friend, our dollar today is worth 2 pennies. That's what our dollar is worth today because our government is printing the money because they need more to pay off their debts, which means that our dollar is not backed by gold. It's not backed by anything. So it has no value. And that is going to catch up to us. And we cannot be a stupid, ignorant people that thinks that we won't have to deal with it. Yes, we will. Can you remember what you paid for a gallon of gas when you first started driving that car? Meaning your first car? Do you remember what you paid for a candy bar? How much you're paying today? We didn't even think about it. My favorite candy bar, a Butterfinger, it's the same size, but I pay $1 today versus 25 cents when I was a kid. Well, who cares, Danny? What's the big deal? Come on, let's fast forward 20 years from now. Let's fast forward 10 years from now. What is the candy bar going to cost 10 years from now? But we're still making the same amount of money. How will you and your family survive? What things do you need to put in place today to make sure that you're not blindsided? To make sure that you'll be able to sustain yourself? What are some ideas you have on this? I'd be happy to share some of our ideas, but I want to hear from you. Do you even know what inflation is? How will you protect you and your family from being completely sucked dry as inflation increases over the next decade and 2 decades, and God forbid that it increases all the more for our children's generation? Kind of scary. This is Dani Johnson. My phone number is 844-200-3264. Again, that's 844-200-3264. Let's look at what we would do differently. What would we do differently if we had known a disaster was coming? How would we live today if we knew that we were going to be sucked dry later? This is Dani Johnson, 844-200-3264. We'll continue with more after this.
What you see is what you get. What you hear is real. This is not a test. It's real life and how to deal with what comes at you every day.
Yeah.
This is the Dani Johnson Show.
This is your chance. This is your shot. Get your copy of War on Debt right now. There's one waiting for you that has your family's name on it. And inside that package is freedom. Your family's freedom is on the inside of that package. All you have to do is open it up, press play, and start applying what I teach you in this program. 888-757-8880. You and I are going to help your family become completely debt-free in the next 5 to 7 years. Just imagine how that's going to feel.
No excuses, just results. And now, back to more of the Dani Johnson Show.
Are you afraid of losing it all? Are you afraid that the hard work that you're putting forward right now is not going to take you to where you want to go? Do you know why you're carrying that fear? Have you ever analyzed it? Where is that fear actually coming from? I think that subconsciously you might know that inflation is going to strangle you one day if you do not make some wise choices today. I know that you know you're paying more money for the same goods and services that you paid far less. In some cases, you paid 75% less for 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. But today, you're paying 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 times more money for the same goods and services. That's where we see inflation. Do you actually think that it's not going to continue? Friend, it is going to continue, and you've got to plan for it. Line 6, we've got Trisha from Ontario, Canada. We're taking your call live, by the way, today, 844-200-3264. What things are you going to do to make sure you protect you and your family from being sucked bone dry because of our government's really bad financial choices or other government's bad financial choices? Trisha from Ontario, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dani. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Perfect. I'm just in the car with my kids. I just saw the post on Facebook, and I really had no idea what inflation is. And now that you've described it a little bit, it's gotten me thinking about what things are going to be like when my kids get older and how much a loaf of bread is going to cost for them.
Yep.
It's scary.
It is, isn't it? It is. So let's think about this, because you're obviously in Canada, and I don't know if your government's printing money to pay off their debts. I don't know what your Canadian dollar is tied to. Ours once was tied to the gold standard. It is no longer. We print our own money just because we're running out. I sure wish I could do that. But I'm not dumb enough to run out. But Trish, what was a candy bar when you were a kid? What was the price of a candy bar, let's say, when you were around a teenager?
Oh, maybe 50 cents.
And what is it today? The same exact candy bar. It's the same size, same amount of ounces, same ingredients. What is the cost of the same candy bar today?
Oh, gosh, I haven't bought one in a long time. I would say they're over $1 now.
Yes, they are over $1 now.
Yeah.
So that means...
So that's double.
Exactly. For the same candy bar. The same one. Did you get double the amount of ounces for double the price? Nope.
Absolutely not. In fact, they're probably smaller.
Well, and then they came out with the bigger ones too. You know, they came out with the big size, and then they charged even double on top of the double for the big one. So you're being wise asking the question, like, man, yeah, this is what I'm paying for a loaf of bread today, and you know your mom didn't pay this price for the loaf of bread that she served you. Correct? No, it costs more.
Correct.
So that means your kids are going to pay more for a loaf of bread. So what do you do to plan for that future? Well, here's one thing that I think is really important, that, number one, that we're even aware, because even as you said, you're like, man, I never thought about inflation. I didn't even know what it was. That's most of us. Do you know that I didn't know what it was either until my husband told me? Seriously. My husband likes to study all of that kind of stuff, and it wasn't until he started talking about it, and I'm like, dude, your conversation is running circles in my head. Can you can you stop with the big words? I don't have a thesaurus present, but can you just break it down and make it plain for me? And that's when he broke it down, and he just said, Dani, what we used to pay for a loaf of bread is not the same as what we're paying today. And I'm like, I can't even remember what I paid 20 years ago for a loaf of bread. But then when I started to think about it, I thought, no, okay, candy bar. Hold on a second, man. It was a quarter. It was a quarter when I was a kid. I remember that specifically. I remember when Thrifties, okay, and they don't exist anymore. They're now called Rite Aid. But they used to have the best ice cream. It's called Chocolate Malted Crunch. Oh, so good. But I remember that if my grandmother gave me like a quarter or she gave me 5 cents or something like that, I would ride my little bike all the way to Thrifty and I would get 1 scoop of ice cream on a cone for 5 cents. For 5 cents. Okay? Wow. Today, it's not 5 cents anymore. That same 1 scoop of ice cream is not 10 cents, it's not 15 cents, it's not 25 cents, it's 75 cents. For 1 scoop of ice cream. We went from 5 cents to 75 cents. I used to be able to get, this is terrible, 3 scoops of ice cream for 15 cents. I used to get a triple decker of chocolate malted crunch for 15 cents. It's not 15 cents anymore. It's like $1 and some change, $1.50 or something like that. Do you understand? So that is inflation. It's the same product. In fact, I'm pretty sure that whoever made chocolate malted crunch, they found cheaper ways to make it. I'm pretty sure. They got some fillers in there now, where before it used to be pretty wholesome. I'm pretty sure they found, cheaper ways to make the same ice cream. But now it costs so much more money. And so when my husband started talking about this and breaking it down to right down to the grocery store, that's when I went, wow, so true. So true. What do we do about this? One of the things that we have to look at, Trish, is this. How many things do we get attached to and buy more of that we actually do not need? And how much more of the money should we be putting away for the future so that we are not blindsided by a grocery bill going from $100 a week to feed my family of 6 to $400 a week to feed my same family of 6 and feeding them the same exact food. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Because inflation, and by the way, even historically, in certain countries that made really bad financial decisions, like Germany, for example, where they were using their money as toilet paper because it had no value. It lost all of its value. And mind you that our government today is making far worse choices than Germany did during that time. Far worse choices. And it came on the Germans, bam, like that, out of nowhere. A loaf of bread would cost a whole, wheelbarrow full of money for 1 loaf of bread. So I know you're a Canadian, and you just said, well, hold on a second. Yeah, I paid 50 cents for a candy bar when I was a kid, and now it's $1. That is double. So looking ahead for the kids, all the more while we have to become financially wise, all the more why we don't want our kids getting addicted to all of these options that are out there, because when they can't afford those options anymore, now what do we have? A bunch of spoiled, rotten brats pulling out their credit card for a candy bar. Pulling out their credit card just to live on their own, just to live, to meet their own basic essential needs. So we have to teach our children how to be financially wise, and we need to start taking more money off the table, putting it aside, because inflation is a reality of our lives. It clearly is. Everything costs more money. Trish, thanks so much for being a mom that's actually paying attention, that you happen to be on Facebook. You're like, I don't even know what inflation is. What is that? And I appreciate you being a faithful listener to the Dani Johnson Show. Okay, we've got Jackie also from Canada. Canada is all over the phones today. Jackie, welcome to the Dani Johnson Show.
Hi, Dani. Thanks for having me. I definitely have some concerns about, just the inflation with saving for my kids' future. Like, is it even worth it to send them to college? I mean, I've already brought my daughter to First Steps to Success, so I'm kind of starting her education early. But, saving for a traditional education, is it worth it?
Mm-hmm. You know what? That's a really good question. And you know what? Canada has some great benefits as far as the education that somebody can go to college. The cost of going to college in Canada is dynamically less then the United States has completely scammed its own citizens with this crazy expensive education that does not pay off. And so I know that in Canada, it's rather inexpensive and very affordable to get a degree in something. And so when we look at inflation, what you have to count on is that you might want to put more money away than what you're thinking right now. That's all. And is it worth it? I don't know what the future holds. I just know this, Jackie. I just know that the day that I got the phone call about my fatal heart condition and I was told that I had to quit my 20-hour weeks of work, I needed to reduce my stress, and that meant that nearly $1 million a year was going to disappear out of nowhere without me working. And so I had wished that somehow I had planned in the first 10 years of making all the money that I made in business, I wished I had put some of it away. So inflation is a guarantee in our lives. It's a guarantee in our children's lives. But we also live in a culture that doesn't save anything. We live in a culture that doesn't put money away for the future. And that's why we're headed for a bigger disaster. We are a culture that goes into debt to buy everything we want, to buy the kids' school clothes for the new coming school year instead of going, do they actually need new clothes? Nope. Do they actually need new shoes? Nope. But we get suckered into the marketing, and all that we make is being sucked into the marketplace instead of saving and living financially responsible. This is Dani Johnson. We'll continue with more right after this.
The Dani Johnson Show, helping people just like you make life more enjoyable and rewarding. The Dani Johnson Show.
For families in Santa Pancha, Nicaragua, life is filled with fear and struggle. They don't have enough food for their kids, clean water is hard to find, and they're living in a decrepit, unsafe hovel on top of mining tunnels that could explode and sink at any moment. But a miracle is in the making, and you can be a part of transforming this village. Go to kingsransom.org and click on Santa Pancha to see how you can help. That's kingsransom.org, kingsransom.org, and click on Santa Pancha.
We're back. Here's Dani Johnson.
I don't know if you've noticed, but it seems like your dollar is getting, it's shrinking somehow. Not the amount of dollars that you have, but that what it can actually buy. And this is why we have got to be smart financially. This is why we have got to pull out of this greedy, gluttonous society that we're living in and begin to be wise, as so many of them learned in the Great Depression, because it came to be that the dollar, wasn't worth much even then, and there was a massive scarcity and famine in the land. All of those who had been living that highfalutin life coming out of the roaring 20s with all their partying and all their alcohol and all their opium, when they came out of that and out of all of their jewels and all of their clothes and all of the entertainment that they had enjoyed, what followed the roaring 20s was the Great Depression. They'd spent all of their prosperity on food, alcohol, a little bit of drugs, clothes, bigger houses, those fandangled new cars. They spent all their prosperity on stuff. And what followed right after the roaring 20s was a Great Depression, where kids starved, men couldn't find work, businesses closed, families suffered. You should go watch the movie Cinderella Man to kind of get a picture of what was taking place during that time. Imagine a father sitting down with his 3 children. There's one piece of bologna, and he gives it to his child to keep them alive, and he eats nothing. I know that you could not imagine that happening, but friend, you gotta think. Come on. The price you're paying for gasoline is much higher than when you first learned to drive. The loaf of bread that was put in front of you when you were a teenager is much more expensive today for the same loaf of bread. Housing, much more expensive today than it was 20 years ago. Yet, the income has not grown in the same dynamics as the price for just basic necessities has. Not to mention all the extras we've grown accustomed to. Like cell phones. You know, I remember my cell phone bill when I was a teenager. I moved out of the house when I was 16, and I probably got my first landline phone when I was 17. My bill was $11 a month for the basic necessities. And if I wanted to make any long-distance phone calls, it was around $20 a month. And so those long-distance phone calls did not happen very often. Far and few did those long-distance phone calls happen. But I remember having a $20 phone bill and going, and today, throwing out $200 for a cell phone per person, wow, doesn't seem to be a big deal. These are things that not only we've grown accustomed to and spending money on, that they are luxuries that we now call necessities. But as inflation rises, it's happening behind the scenes whether you realize it or not. Come on, I've been talking about my favorite candy bar, Butterfinger, right? Here's my favorite candy bar. It was 25 cents when I was a kid. Now it's $1. 4 times. 4 times in 3 decades that candy bar has increased in price. So if you really look at everything that you're putting your money to, that is what's happening behind the scenes. And the saddest part about this is that few of us plan for the future. Few of us save. But instead, we spend all that we make. And when this correction comes, because there will be, just like what came out of the Roaring '20s, where they spent all they made, and then bam, here came a change in the market, a change with the stock market, a change with the real estate market, a change with business. A famine hit the land. And famines are common. They happen. And so when the famine hit the land, people lost it all. People jumped out of their buildings and killed themselves. They left their children fatherless or motherless because of the Great Depression, because they no longer could live in that house. They no longer could drive that car. They no longer could buy that steak. They didn't plan ahead. They didn't see the coming disaster. They lived as though the money was going to last forever. My husband and I have made those same mistakes our first 10 years of making money. But by golly, my friend, I will not make that mistake again. And neither should you. So how are you protecting your future? How are you protecting your family's future? Because inflation is a real thing. You're going to pay more. In fact, you'll come to a place where you're going to pay double for the same loaf of bread. You're going to pay double for the same gallon of milk. You're going to pay double for the same sliced cheese. You're going to pay double, eventually triple, eventually quadruple is what you're going to pay. Your $100 a week food bill is going to go to $400. How are you going to do it when that happens? Well, Dani, I guess I have to make more money. Friend, trust me, that is not the answer. The answer is much bigger than just making more money. It's being wise with your money. So I'd like to hear from you, 844-200-3264. Again, that's 844-200-3264. How are you planning for the inflation that is happening, whether you see it with your own eyes or not? We've got Mike from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Welcome to the Dani Johnson Show.
Hey, Dani, thanks for having me today.
Yes. So what are you doing to plan for the future and to protect your investments?
So a couple of things. Right now I have a couple of things. I work for a full-time job, and so that's a pretty good source of income. Additionally to that, I have a home-based business that also provides a source of passive income, and I've got some real estate investments that also provide an additional source of income. And I will tell you, Dani, that even though all these things provide money, the number one investment that has continued to give me 100% is the investment I made in myself and in my own education.
Yep. Which is awesome. And you know what? I have to tell you that my husband and I, that is the number one place where we've seen the greatest dividends as well, is as we've grown, as we learn, as we've made investments into our education, as we've made investments into learning more about business, more about investing, more about finances, that absolutely has paid off. No question. And what's so funny, Mike, is that most people don't do that. But on the other side of the coin, I'm proud of you, by the way, that you've got 3 sources of income, 2 of which that are passive. That's wise. That's really, really wise. And to be honest with you, I see that to be as a good way to protect yourself from the inflation that is going to increase and can increase overnight, meaning we could seriously see a doubling at the grocery store, paying double for the same goods and services that we're paying for today. And so when that happens, what do? Well, having these 3 different sources of income, I think, is wise. We have multiple sources of income as well. But what's important is not just increasing your income through multiple different sources, but it's more important to make sure that you don't increase your lifestyle as you've increased your income, but that you live simple, that you do not get attached to a bunch of luxuries, but that you live simple. This is what I found. A bunch of luxuries actually brings more stress because you got to manage the luxuries. You do. It's more stuff that you got to take care of. I have found that the simpler life that I have, the less stress and the more peace that I have. So if I'm not getting attached to some very expensive foods, let's say, or some very expensive conveniences and services, well then when the inflation comes and I wouldn't be able to afford those things anymore, I'm not losing anything because I never got attached. This is Dani Johnson. We're going to continue with more right after this.
Don't just stand there. Soak this up. It's joy, it's encouragement, it's insight to a better life and how to meet your obligations and overcome obstacles.
The Dani Johnson Show.
This is the Dani Johnson Show.
And I'm so blessed that I found what is in Grooming the Next Generation for Success. This is a book that is being taught in universities around the world. It's been noted as the best book on parenting that has ever been written. Crazy, if you ask me. But the point is that this thing gets results. Get your copy today, 888-757-8880. Again, that's 888-757-8880. Or go to DaniJohnson.com. That's D-A-N-I Johnson.com. Get your copy today.
If you like being depressed, enjoy having no drive in your life to improve, want to be lazy, love being an underachiever, then this show is not for you. Get off your loser attitude and stay tuned to the Dani Johnson Show. The Dani Johnson Show. Dani Johnson Show.
Welcome to Hour 2 of the Dani Johnson Show. Today in Hour 1, we were talking about how inflation has played a part in all of our lives, and it's kind of like one of these sneaky little things in the background that's happening, and yet we have not planned for it. And we also talked about how that if you have ever suffered through a big disaster, that if somebody had kind of tipped you off before that disaster came, would you have actually taken that advice? And I was talking about the fatal heart condition I was diagnosed with when I was 30 years old. It was March 17th of 2000. Maybe I was 31. Yeah, I was 31. I had just turned 31, actually. And yeah, and we had spent all we had made. We had made a lot of money. We spent it all. We saved nothing. And one thing I wished I would have done was, could have saved all 5 kids' college tuition, could have saved the 2 weddings that we were going to have to pay for eventually, could have saved a giant nest egg, because we lost a huge income all in the same day that I was diagnosed with our fatal heart condition. And my husband lost $100,000 in I should say we, because it was both of our income. We lost $100,000 in the stock market all in the same day. So that was a huge financial blow that blindsided us. And so I want you to call me now with this, the answer to this question. What do you wish somebody had taught you when you were younger that you could have prepared for as you were older? What do you wish that somebody would have said to you that would have kind of set you up for greater success, or maybe even had protected you from being blindsided due to your own actions? Now, again, I was diagnosed with this terrible heart condition. That wasn't planned. That wasn't something that I did to myself. It turned out I was born with a defect in my heart. I was born with 2 electrical pathways that caused my heart to race. So, and the only thing they said that could fix it was a pacemaker and 3 different drugs. Well, they left one thing out that could fix it. God actually healed me. So the great physician was not limited by Dr. Saxon's diagnosis. Anyway, nonetheless, there are some things that when we look back, that were just natural disasters. In my case, a natural disaster with my heart. However, I couldn't have prepared for that because I didn't know that was going to happen. But I could have made wiser financial choices in the 10 years that I made that money. That I could have done. That I wished I would have done. So obviously, we've made different choices moving forward. So what about you? 844-200-3264. Again, that is 844-200-3264. 3264. It's kind of like one of those questions of, what do you wish you knew that you didn't know back then? When you were younger, what piece of advice would have been really valuable to you at that time to set you up for what you were about to face? So we've got Chelsea from Tampa, Florida. Chelsea, welcome to the Dani Johnson Show.
Hi, Dani.
Hi.
Hi. So I guess I always grew up in a Christian home. My parents were great with how they spent their money. They're top 98 percenters. They always told us to save and tithe, but they just suggested it. They didn't. I know you've shared before how you done with your kids. Mm-hmm. You've kind of set up a financial plan for them and encourage them a little bit more. I wish my family would have kind of stand firm to that and made sure we did tithe, not just kind of suggest it, but say, no, these are the financial laws, and kind of force that a little bit more to tithe and to save, and also to encourage me to start a business from when I was younger. I always naturally had garage sales or lemonade stands, but to kind of geared me in that route. They weren't always successful, but they were fun. But kind of geared me in that route a little bit more.
Tell me why. What do you think would have changed in you if they had more enforced the concept of giving and had enforced the concept of saving? What do you feel, and if they encouraged you more towards business, how do you feel you would have turned out differently if you had known that piece of information or had been trained up with that piece of information?
I think, one, I would be more financially, I guess, prepared, and obviously more of a 2% mindset with the future in mind, compared to just kind of living for the now and what I need to get by. Have those habits. I'm 25 now, but even just when I was like 10, just have those habits instilled in me from a younger age. Yeah. That way, when it feels starting over as much, even though, like I said, I know I am younger. However, instill that, like with the next generation, when you're 6 and you're 10 and these kids have own their businesses, blow my mind that their parents are investing them now and doing that now, because when they're my age, they're going to be, have all this more financial knowledge than I wish I had then. So I think just, setting them up for success.
Yeah. I agree. I had wished that I had the same, but at the same time, I grew up in extreme poverty until I was about 14. And then after 14, actually more like 12, 13, like our financial life changed a little bit when I was about 12, and then it changed a lot of it when I was 14, and then I moved out when I was 16. But at the same time, we all have advantages and disadvantages in life, and it's what we do with the advantages and disadvantages. And you're 25 years old, girlfriend. You are young. You are so young. You have your whole life ahead of you to make wise financial choices. So please do not use the excuse that I wasn't trained right, or I wished my parents would have really enforced me learning how to give and enforced me learning how to save so I didn't have these bad habits. You can't blame mom and dad anymore, because God led you to DaniJohnson.com. You got another mom over here saying, this is how to do it. Now get her done. There's no excuse, Chelsea. There's no excuse at all. And do your future children a huge service by helping to enforce it. Not as lording over them, but just enforcing it, holding them accountable. And that's where a lot of parents mess up, is that we're not consistent. We come up with a good idea, we implement the good idea, and then we just we get busy with life and we're not consistent with it. So, but that's what you can learn from what your parents did. They gave you a baton with at least talking to you about tithing, at least talking to you about saving. Oh, wow. They at least let you have little businesses of lemonade stands and garage sales. That's huge. Now you take it as a springboard and do better for the next generation. Not in spite of, my parents should have done this. No, it's like, thank you, mom and dad, because you know what, Chelsea? Most parents don't teach their kids those principles that you were taught. Most kids don't even get that. And that was huge. And you know what? I wonder if mom and dad did try to enforce it, and I wonder if you gave them a rub back. They just got tired of fighting you, girlfriend. That's a possibility. Bet if you were to ask your parents, they'd tell you. But anyway, so again, you're supposed to do better with what they gave you. And I believe that you will do that. Thanks so much for the call, Chelsea. I absolutely appreciate you in that. There's probably a lot of things that our parents taught us that we forgot or that we didn't realize that we gave them a really bad attitude on, right? Did you ever give your parents a bad attitude on something? Yeah. I remember our son, Roman, number 4. When we first set up this financial plan, if you will, for them, that every dollar that came in, they needed to split it up. 10 cents went to God, and that was in the form of helping the poor, give it to the widow or an orphan or someone that we're delivering out of the sex trade or someone who's just suffered a terrible disaster like the earthquake that happened in Haiti. And so 10 cents goes straight to the work of God. And 40 cents of it you get to keep and have fun with, and 50 cents of it you have to put away in an asset account. And if you want to buy something that's expensive, then you have to save that 40 cents until it adds up into being enough for you to buy the computer or whatever, the bike or whatever it is that you want to buy. Well, Roman had the worst attitude, man. He gave us a rub and a half. And so every time that we'd sit down and, he'd go deposit his checks and he'd have to make out the deposit slip and take out, the 10% and the 40% and put it in these different places. He just was a brat. I mean, a brat. Okay. And he was for a while until something clicked in his head. And it was really cute. He's like, why am I giving you this money? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, why even should I make any money? Because I don't get to keep any of it. He's one of those guys. It's like really hot or really ice cold. Do you have a kid like that? I don't know where he got that from. But anyway, he's like, wow, excited or just down the dumps, man. So this one, once it clicked in his head, that the 50% was to be put in something that would make him money. Then he went, can I put more than 50%? It was awesome to see the light bulb go off. And it actually was with gold. He had taken $5,000, which he had saved in his account, and he bought $5,000 worth of gold. And then my husband had taught him how to see what the value of gold was. This is how much you paid for it, and now that's how much it's worth. So if you were to sell it today, this is how much more money you have because your money made you money. Do you understand what I'm saying? So right then he went, ding. Okay, and at the time we had cattle. He was purchasing cattle, and so you buy a cow for this, you sell it for that. Every time he sold a cow, he made $75 on his initial investment. So not only did he get the $300 back, but now he got $375. And you're like, where do you buy a cow for $300? Nicaragua. But anyway, that's where our cattle business is. So anyway, so that made sense to him. I was like, okay, well, I got this much money. How many cows can I buy? And then, can I sell them? And now can I buy some more? And you know what I mean? So he started to get it into his head. But listen, when you hear us talk about our family, don't think for a minute I have perfect angelic children. I don't. They give me a rub just like your kids give you a rub. And some days, I want to cold cock them. And other days, I have the grace of the Holy Spirit on me. You know that's funny. Come on, the Dani Johnson Show is about being real, friend. That's what this is about. It's about being real. We got real problems. Hopefully we come up with some real solutions. If the solution didn't work, we find another one. But we don't just sit wallowing in that problem. So I don't know how we got there. But anyway, this is Dani Johnson. We're going to continue talking about what you want to talk about for the rest of the show. So if you want to talk about, wow, I wished somebody would have told me X so that would have saved me from my Y disaster. I wish I would have known this today versus not knowing it yesterday. So if you've got one of those, right? You faced a disaster and you wished you were more prepared. Come on, help us be more prepared by you sharing what that is. 844-200-3264. We've only got about 45 minutes left of this show, so this is your chance. The phone lines are hot. 844-200-3264. We'll continue with more right after this.
Hey, have you done a favor for your best friend yet? Then do it now. Share this program with them. The Dani Johnson Show, helping people just like you make life more enjoyable and rewarding. The Dani Johnson Show.
The whole story of how I went from homeless to millions is right here in this book, First Steps to Wealth. I'd love to give you a free copy of this book. Just dial 888-757-8880. You can get your free copy of this book. It's like a real book, my friend. You can get an ebook copy for free right now, or if you'd like to pay the shipping to get this $15 book to your house, I'd be happy to send it to you. 888-757-8880. Get your copy of First Steps to Wealth today and begin on a brand new path of some great success.
Now, more of the Dani Johnson Show.
A few weeks back, we were at First Steps to Success, which is our training seminar that teaches you how to completely annihilate your debt in 5 to 7 years, grow your finances through your career or starting a business or grow that current business, as well as doing it without sacrificing your family or your fun. And at that training seminar, it was the third day, the seminar ends on a Monday. And I had asked the crowd a question. Actually, I gave them something to think about. And here's what it was. I said, I want you to think right now who you are and the amount of wisdom that you have today and experience and skill sets. And I want you to think back to who you were 5 years ago. And I want you to give yourself advice. What would you tell yourself 5 years ago? What kind of a pep talk would you have given yourself? What kind of advice would you have said of, hey, there's a disaster coming in 3 years, prepare for it by saving this much money or whatever. Then I said, now I want you to look ahead 5 years from now. Look into your future and look at who will you be? Who do you want to be 5 years from now? How do you want to think 5 years from now? Where do you want your weight to be 5 years from now? What do you want your life to look like? What kind of character do you want? Do you want to be an overreactor still, or do you want to be more calm? Do you want to be more mature? And now what I want you to do is I want that person whom you will become, give yourself advice today. Wouldn't that be great? Come on, we've all seen the time machine movies, right? We've seen them all. And there's always, like Terminator, right? Somebody's coming back from the future to say, you got to do this, you got to go there, watch out for this, right? You're going to die around that corner. Don't do that. You know what I'm saying? I wish we could do that. We really don't have that future person from the future coming back to tell us. But if you were in that scenario, what would you tell yourself to do today? How would you tell yourself to live? When you look into the future, what totally stresses you out? What is your biggest worry when you look into your future? And let's try to solve it today. This is Dani Johnson, 844-200-3264. Again, that's 844-200-3264. We've got line 6, Brenda from Indiana. Brenda, when you look into the future, what stresses you out, baby?
Finances. I've been working in a nursing home, and we just got new management, so they're cutting overtime out. So yesterday I did a 16-hour shift. We put 50 people to bed in 3 hours by ourselves.
Wow.
We're not caring about the residents and the people.
Wow.
I love working home health care, but I don't know, is it a wise decision to just branch out on my own, get my own stuff privately, or just stay with a company? And
well, Brenda, if your future working inside of the job that you have right now is oh my God. Oh no, but first of all, you said when you look into the future, you stress about finances. You're worried about money, right? Well, let me ask you this. How much do you get paid to worry about money?
Not enough.
Actually, no one gets paid to worry about money.
It's true. That's true.
Worrying about money actually costs you money. Literally.
Oh.
Worrying about money costs you money because worry costs you time. Worrying never brings a solution. Ever will you find a solution by worrying. The only thing that comes out of worry is fear and anxiety and indecision and procrastination. That's the only fruit that comes out of worrying. Let me say it again. Fear, anxiety, the inability to make a decision, and procrastination. Now, I got to ask you a question. Brenda, How much money does procrastination pay?
Nothing.
How much money does anxiety pay?
Nothing at all. Just gets you more sick.
So therefore, it costs you money, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah, it does. Because when you get sick from worry, when you get stressed from worry, right? You lose sleep, then you look for the chocolate or the Red Bull. You made expensive bad financial food choices, which then create other health problems, which now means you have to leave work to go to the doctor, and work doesn't pay you to go to the doctor. And then, of course, we have the wonderful Obamacare, which has cost our company 6 figures more this year than last year. And, oh, but wait a second. It's really not that great of care, and it's actually costing more money. Worry costs you money. This is Dani Johnson. We will continue with more after this.
Don't just stand there. Soak this up. It's joy, it's encouragement, it's insight to a better life and how to meet your obligations and overcome obstacles. This is the Dani Johnson Show.
Did you know you can see Dani Johnson live and in person? Go to DaniJohnson.com and find out about our next live event. First steps to success, register today. Call 866-760-8255 or go to DaniJohnson.com/FSTS.
Improving the quality of your life. The Dani Johnson Show.
I love it.
So, what do you wish you knew from your past that you didn't know that would have helped you succeed? I know I just totally confused you, like, I'm not following that, Dani. All right, let's look ahead. What stresses you out about your future? When you look ahead, what is the biggest stressful part of your future? Line 1, we've got Barbara from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dani. Well, I have 4 kids, and 3 of them are boys, and I have 1 girl, and 2 teenagers and 2 younger kids. And I find myself thinking a lot and trying to almost figure out a way where I want to be able to keep my kids close, and I want to have good relationships with them when they get older, and I want them to be able to want to come home and want to be close and stuff. And I really didn't have that with my parents. And so I just find myself worrying about that a little bit. Maybe not worry is a good word, but just trying to figure out ways to try to make that happen, which isn't right in a sense either.
You mean you're trying to figure out how to control them? And control their destiny? I'm sorry, Barbara, that I'm laughing because I'm looking in the mirror right now. I'm looking in the mirror, honey. My dream, okay? With my 5 kids, I want 25 grandkids. I want everyone living down the street. I want the grandkids staying the night at the house, all 25 of them at once, okay? This is my fantasy. This is my dream. I've recently come to realize something. If that's not my kid's dream, and more importantly, my kids are on loan from God. I have no idea if I'm going to be alive tomorrow or if God would be so gracious to take me home with him. I have no idea if the same would happen to one of my children. That best success book ever written has so much great wisdom in it. And I'm talking to myself right now, Barbara, just to let you know. How many days do I add to my life? And you said it first, and honestly, worrying about tomorrow, honey. You know you're worried about it. You know you are, as I have. And this is where we have to come to this, one of my favorite scriptures in the best success book ever written, the Bible. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Barbara, what if you gave birth to the next Billy Graham? And out of your lack of understanding of the calling on your son's life or your daughter's life, that you programmed them with control for your own selfish desires.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
No. You'd have a Father in heaven to answer to. We have no idea.
Yes, I don't want to do that.
No. So out of insecurity of the family life you had and the one I had, yes, I want to keep my babies close. Our daughter just moved to Oregon with our grandson and her husband. I was shattered inside, Barbara. Shattered. I had my grandson every single week. I had my daughter every single week. I never imagined in a million years that she wouldn't be right. And you know that my daughter's dream was to live right next door. And when she met her future husband, she told him, if you can't see yourself living right next door to my parents, don't even think about it, because that's where I'm going to live for the rest of my life. Things change. He agreed. All right, we'll live right next door to your parents. They've been married for 2 years. They just left a month ago. So even that promise that Erica made, even the promise that her husband made, it is what it is, Barbara. We can't worry about tomorrow, and we can't try to make a guarantee for tomorrow. We can't. We just can't.
Yeah.
We have to raise them, love them, build the relationship for the little tiny moments that we have with them, because it's all we got. We just have a moment with them, and we got to make the best out of it. So,
Yeah.
I know you got tears in your eyes. I do too. And it's hard being a mom. It's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be willing to trust in the Lord instead of worrying about tomorrow. So that's my advice. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you, lady. And I understand what you're going through. David from Kentucky, what is the thing that stresses you out most about your future?
Not knowing how to really create goals. I try to create some goals, but I'm always, stopping and then start myself.
And so what stresses you out about not completing your goals?
I guess really trying to get, more specific, what I want in my life,
right,
so to speak. I got so many dreams, yet I don't know how to create goals to, with those dreams.
Yeah.
And that's what really stresses me out.
Yeah. Well, David, let me help you with that, because years ago, I had to learn a hard lesson, and I learned it from my husband. And my husband used to be somebody that used to set 3 small goals at the beginning of the year, and I'd have 50 giant ones. I was going to change the world in 1 year. I was going to bring world peace in 1 year. I somehow was going to help everybody treat each other right. I was going to do it in 1 year. Yeah, by week 3, I quit. And my husband would achieve all 3 of his goals in that year. And his goals would be like, stop drinking Coca-Cola. I'd be like, dude, can you come up with something good to do with your life? I was such a mean, horrible wife in those early days. I'm much better now. I still fall off the wagon once in a while, but I'm much better now. But I learned something valuable there. And that was setting goals that were not the size of my dreams, but the baby steps that would help to take me towards the dream. When we set our goals according to the dream, we can get totally overwhelmed, and we size our ability up with the dream, and it will never measure up. When you size your ability of who you are today with the size of the ability that the dream needs in order for the dream to come to pass, you won't get out of bed. But if you back it up and you say, okay, what could I do today that could at least help me get one step closer to eventually where I want to go? Those little tiny baby steps is what I've built my success on. not the big steps. Lord have mercy, not the big steps. It's always in the little things I have found for myself and for our clients that they've built their confidence on. And because they just stayed consistent with the little things, bam, pretty soon they were living in their dream. So awesome. Thanks so much for the call. I appreciate you. This is Dani Johnson. What is stressing you out about your future? 844-200-3264. Again, that's 844-200-3264. We've talked about a lot of things today. We started the show about what we know is inevitable, and that is inflation. We know that that is going to happen. It is already happening, right? My 5-cent little ice cream cone when I was a kid at Rite Aid, or not, that was called Thrifty's, now it's Rite Aid, for that chocolate malted crunch, for that one scoop, today is 75 cents for that same one scoop. That is multiplied times more money for the same scoop of ice cream. So we know that the future holds some different finances than what we're used to today. You know, for some of us, the future might hold some health problems. What changes can we make today to prepare us for what is around the corner tomorrow? Instead of worrying about it, instead of stressing about it, what can we do today to make sure that we will do better tomorrow when we face some financial problems, when we face some marital problems, kid problems, disasters, or good times? We might be facing some really good times. What should we do during those good times? Yeah? That's a really good question. Hopefully not blow all the good. Hopefully not be an idiot during the good times, but be wise. Yeah. 844-200-3264. We're getting ready for our last segment of the Dani Johnson Show. Again, the question is, what stresses you out most when you look into the future? 844-200-3264. I really wish that, I was more teachable when I was younger. Gosh, isn't that so true? When you're young, I hear this all the time, especially in this certain generation. Well, I'm much more mature than I was when I was 15, and they're like 19. I totally can handle that. I got this. I'm so good at my job. Like, and why did you get fired? Because they're blind. They didn't know what they had. Ooh, I used to be that kid. Oh, gosh, I used to be that kid. This is Dani Johnson. We'll continue with more right after this.
The Dani Johnson Show. In a world of broken promises, we're here to help you through life. The Dani Johnson Show. No excuses, no blaming, just real life. Stay tuned for more of The Dani Johnson Show.
I just heard this amazing story. One of our clients had written us telling us that they had used job domination and unlimited success and has absolutely exploded their career. He said, Dani, I don't know where I'd be today without job domination and unlimited success. Listen, do you want more recognition from your coworkers? Do you want to be recommended to people all over the world? Do you want to be somebody that is highly sought after? Listen, if you're in a dead-end place where this gentleman found himself, but then learned new strategies and changed everything in his work life, and obviously this has resulted in higher bonuses and pay raises, you're next. 888-757-8880. Get your copy of Job Domination right now. 888-757-8880. Again, 888-757-8880. Job domination. That's what you need. It's time for you to dominate the job market and break through the rut that you're in.
We're back. Here's Dani Johnson.
So an earthquake hits your home. Could you imagine? How would you feel? Just think about that for a second. You weren't planning for an earthquake to destroy your entire home. You weren't planning for an earthquake to destroy your food and water supply either. But it happened. Such is life, right? Things happen out of our control here on planet Earth to all people, to people who are good and people who are not so good. But how do you plan? What would you have wished you had done? Sometimes things come out of left field. We're caught blindsided. Kind of like what happened with Fida. She has 9 children. The earthquake hit her home, left her homeless with her 9 children, totally destroyed the water and contaminated it, and therefore contaminated water contaminates crops. No way to feed her family.
Now, I don't know about you, but if I were Fida and I'm looking at these 9 children looking up at me, wondering when mommy was going to feed me, I'm telling you, man, that's some bad, hard times. That's exactly what Fida is facing right now. But you can help. For $1, you can help. $2, $3, or $6,400 will build Fida a brand new home. She's in Kadwa, Haiti, along with 2,000 other people who have faced that tragic end. They've been hopeless and helpless, but a pastor refused to not believe for a miracle and pray. And God brought a miracle. He brought you and he brought me. And we are going to rebuild that entire village. 65 homes we're going to rebuild. 2 water supplies. A sugar plant that will provide 200 jobs. New crops. We're going to get these homeless people with terrible contaminated water, clean water, and new homes. How? Go to kingsransom.org. Again, that's kingsransom.org. Kingsransom.org. Click on Kadwa, Haiti. It's the first thing that comes up on the page. And give what you can. $1 or $2, 20, 2,000, 6,400. Or go and knock on some doors in your neighborhood of all of the people living in their plush homes with all their plush food and ask them to help. Get your neighborhood to build one home for one homeless family that's in Kadwa, Haiti. Do it now, kingsransom.org. But listen, I know you might be saying right now, well, Dani, my life is not that bad. But when I look into the future, I'm scared about a few things. So what is it when you look into the future? What scares you? What terrifies you? What do you stress out about? And how may we help you solve that problem today? Heather from Tampa, Florida, welcome to the Dani Johnson Show.
Hi.
Hi. So what scares you when you look in the future? Oh, we just lost her. Terrible. Are you there? Nope, we lost her line. Tragic. That doesn't happen very often. Well, nonetheless, when I look into the future, I got to tell you, because right now, our kids are getting older. And when I look into the future, I'll tell you, I'm going to be real. I've looked at that I'm going to be alone home with my husband. I love my husband passionately, man. He's a fine man. He's a man with some great wisdom. But right now, my house is really quiet because I only have 3 kids that are left in the house, only because my oldest son moved back to save some money. He and his new bride are saving some cash. They want to travel. So they're both working and saving money. And so when I look, seriously, at the future, I think, oh, it's going to be so quiet. And I've had to walk through that. I've had to deal with it. I've had to pray through that and try to find something to be really excited about with that. I'm one of those moms that really loves my kids and loves a lot of noise around the house, even though from time to time I wish there wasn't as much. But enough about me. When you look into the future, what is it that you see and it stresses you out? Daniel from Florida, welcome to the Dani Johnson Show.
Hey, Dani, how are you doing?
Good. So when you look in the future, what do you see that you don't like?
What I don't like... Good question. One thing that I've been looking past is myself. And I guess the only limitations I have are the ones that I put on myself because God set me free. So I look at my future and I say, it's pretty bright because the Lord's ordaining my future now. Amen. I'm not doing it all for myself.
Yes.
But, I basically just keeping my own heart and my own will in check. Mm-hmm. Just making sure it lines up with his design, because I have a lot of drive to do a lot of things. But I'm at the point where when I put my hands on something, I'm praying over it now, and I'm commanding success and taking authority.
Yes.
But sometimes you can kind of you could still do all that, and you're still just kind of shooting in the breeze. Mm-hmm. When you know the Lord's will. You can it's just easier to believe what you're praying for after God's already giving you something in your spirit about it.
Yeah.
And I'm getting into my spirit zone more and more and more these past couple of years, to where it's like, oh, all right, God, I hear you, without him actually saying it. Like, this prayer is, you feel something resonate with your spirit.
Yep.
you know, because it's hitting your heart too.
Yep.
That's when it's real.
Yes, yes. But you know what, Daniel? I've had so many of those moments in my life, and those moments do carry. But what happens when you reach the dry place and you're shooting up that prayer and you feel like it's landing on deaf ears? What happens when you come to that place where you can't feel anything? Have you ever been in that place?
Oh, sure. You know, don't lean upon your own understanding.
That's
right. Trust in the Lord, because it doesn't matter what you feel, what you see, or what you think. God is still God, and if He promises, He's faithful to complete everything He began.
That's right.
If He already said, "I will grant you the desires of your heart, and I will meet all of your needs according to my riches and glory through Christ Jesus," you're actually in a better place having nothing, because He will provide it.
Amen. Amen. Daniel, that's awesome.
Including your answers.
Exactly.
Your answers are all of that too.
Yep. Amen. I 100% agree. Yep. I 100% agree. I've been in those dry places. You know, I got to tell you this. I got to end today's show with this. I hit a really dry place after I was diagnosed with that fatal heart condition and looked back and said, my gosh, I was such a fool with money. I should have saved. And, you know, you do that. You kick yourself. And I remember just praying several times a day. And I remember coming to this place where I told God, because I could not feel Him. It's as though He removed His Spirit from me. And we know that that is possible because David wrote that in Psalms. He'd beg God, please do not take your Holy Spirit from me. And he would cry out saying, where are you? Are you not listening to me? And he'd scream louder and louder and louder. And I came to a place where I said, Lord, if you never answer another prayer, if you never perform another miracle in my life, if you never show me that you are hearing me, I don't care, because I'm still going to show up here every single day. And I'm still going to praise you. And I'm still going to worship you. And I'm still going to teach my kids about you. And I'm still going to love you, because what you did for me at the cross was enough. This is Dani Johnson. Thanks so much for joining me today. I pray you have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow with another topic that's going to make an improvement on your life.
It's time to say goodbye for now, but tune in again for the next Dani Johnson Show right here. Dani has so much to say and so little time to say it all. We welcome you to join us right back here again. Until then, make the most of life. You've been listening to The Dani Johnson Show.
Hi, welcome to the Dani Johnson YouTube channel. We're super excited to have you here. And every single week, we're gonna make sure that you get awesome videos for your business, career, making more money, saving money, annihilating your debt, as well as helping you to handle those really tough problems that you have with people at home, as well as at work, and taking those really good relationships you already have and causing them to flourish and grow. All you have to do is click that subscribe button right down here. Click that and you'll be subscribed to an amazing community of people, as well as some great videos that will help to improve your life. Thanks so much for being here. Subscribe now would be good. Just click it. I know you can see it. It's somewhere down here. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.